What's up, guys? I'm going to talk today about the race at Talladega, what I thought about it. I don't really do race reviews every week or anything like that, but when I do feel like there's something that I'm interested in to talk about, I'll kind of review the race and I'll talk a little bit about it. It's not really going to be an in-depth review of this particular race, but more of an overall look at uh, Talladega and what we call restrictor plate races, what we get at Daytona and Talladega. And those of you who've seen my videos in the past, you know I'm not a fan of restrictor plate racing for many reasons. And this particular race on Sunday, I will say, um, it didn't convert me right to a Daytona Talladega fan, but I could live with it. Okay, the race was really good for what it is. I'm not as high on it as like other people are. There are other people who think it's like, wow, it's the greatest thing ever. The race was so awesome. I'm not there, but all things considered, I think that I was pleasantly surprised and pleased with the product on Sunday. And if we get more of that in the future at Daytona and Talladega, I could live with it and I could even enjoy it. So that's as much as I'll go with it, as far as, what I think of it. I'm not as high as other people are on it. There are still issues with this type of race that I don't like, which I will talk about. But for now, I want to focus on the positive first. And the biggest thing is, and this is something that I want people to focus on because it's something I've talked about before. And this idea that NASCAR has that, or what they've been trying to do with this new package, is to make the racing, between everyone stack everyone up closer, kind of like pack racing. That I guess their thought is, if we keep these people all bunched up, it's excitement, automatic excitement. I don't buy into that. I don't like that. Uh, and I think this race, ironically, proves what I said. Because what we normally get at Daytona and Talladega is pack racing where you got packs of like 30 cars all inches apart. And you get this conga line for hours where everyone is just like locked together. And you really can't do much. And it's just it's like 3 rows of a freight train. That's not exciting to me. And it's one of the things I hate most about these type of races. We didn't get that. And this package, I'm not a fan of the package this year for the reasons I talked about. And I don't think it's where NASCAR should keep going, okay, from what I've seen this year. But for Daytona and Talladega, these particular races, this thing worked almost perfectly. So I do like the package for this. I want to emphasize it's for this, right? Daytona, Talladega. That massive spoiler in the back, it really works well at this particular track because it serves 2 purposes. One, it does slow the car down. It produces drag, and if you're not going to, I guess, hit dangerously, ridiculously high speeds, but also if you like kind of fall out of line, you'll like parachute back. It works like a parachute, but it also helps accelerate the car. Not the car with the spoiler itself, but the spoiler punches a bigger hole in the air, allowing other people behind to get in that draft, and that closing rate was really noticeable. I mean, so in effect, what you got, instead of a conga line of cars all attached together like a freight train, what you got instead was what I consider more of an accordion effect. You had guys kind of spreading out a bit, but also with the closing rate and the hole in the air, the the cars would come close together. So it'd be constantly like an accordion. So you would see guys that if they weren't careful, the closing rate was really dangerous, right? But with Bubba Wallace, it helped cause an accident there. Later in the race, you saw the same thing. And also, if the guy got, guys were constantly, one moment they would be following a guy, then the next moment they would just, by the slightest edge, just lose that spot. Someone would tuck their car underneath, and then they would get shuffled to the back. So normally I hated stuff like that, but in this particular race, with the way the package and everything was working, I kind of liked it because even the guys that fell back, they were able to get back in, and if they caught that draft just right, it would close right back into the pack. So it's not like a guy would just lose his spot, get shuffled, and then he'd end up in no man's land. So the package was really good for this race because of those things. And you saw guys fall to the back and then work their way right back up. So that, for me, made it a much, much better race than in the past. And I think that's what I want people to notice. You didn't get the same type of pack racing where everybody's just attached, 30 fucking cars, and nobody could do anything because they're inches apart. You didn't really get that. So that I really enjoyed, and I want people to recognize that. And I hope NASCAR recognizes that keeping these guys all bunched up in a pack, that's not great racing. That's not what produces great racing. Okay? So, ironically, that's what I've been talking about. And I think, in my opinion, a restrictor plate race proved it. Ironically, right? Which I wouldn't have thought that. But watching this race and seeing that, but this package is perfect for Daytona, Talladega. The rest of the year with the new package, I don't like it. I don't think it's worked as intended. But for this race, I can't complain, to be honest with you. So, considering the fact that I'm someone who is not a fan of the Daytona, Talladega type races, they did a great job. And I can literally watch these races now. I watched the whole race, and I was never bored. There was always something happening. Another thing was the leaders, right? You would get a guy, take a lead, and they could hold it for several laps, but you didn't get that domination where a guy just could hold the lead forever and just block everyone and nobody could make a move, no matter what they did. You didn't really get that. So you got guys who took the lead, ran laps, led. They were able to block for a while, but someone else was able to make a run and just take the spot. And you saw that throughout the day. And that, for me, was another huge plus. That's the type of thing that this new package this year was supposed to do and hasn't really done, to be honest with you. But that's what I mean, Daytona, Talladega. I like what I see. And could you imagine, Daytona is a little bit more of a handling track than Talladega. So I would assume we'd get an even better race at Daytona. So I really like this package for these two tracks, okay? As far as the rest of the year and this new aero package they've been doing this year, I can't wait to see that go. And NASCAR really needs to pay attention to what's happening. The best racing we've seen so far this year are where cars are able, you're not stuck in a pack. And guys are able to make moves and make passes and it's come down to mechanical grip and tire wear and stuff like that. Those have been the best races this year. The races where, the cars are closer together, but you still get these guys take the lead and nobody could pass them. Clean air is still king and stuff like that. So, that's that. Now, as good as the race was, right, there is something that still bothers me, and it's always really been a part of restrictor plate races, which I know a lot of people are going to say, no, this wasn't technically a restrictor plate race. They used tapered spacers. It still cuts down the horsepower. They were able to give them more horsepower with this race, which actually helped the racing. But the point is, whether you want to call it a restrictor plate race or a tapered space, whatever, it's the same thing. The point is that there's something that I really fucking hate about these races. This thing where the owners have insist that their drivers only work with specific manufacturers. This whole teammate stuff this is what I hate most about Daytona Talladega. The fact that you really can't succeed by yourself. You have to work with other people. Then there's all this politics going on. There was a point in the race where Joey Logano actually threw a temper tantrum because who was it? Was he talking about Blaney or someone else that got out of line? It might have been a different driver from another team, but he was or Stenhouse, I think, or somebody. He was upset because the guy got out of line or something and didn't help him stay up front or whatever the fuck this shit was. They were talking about it, and they actually played the radio, and you hear Joey Logano whining to his spotter, and that's the kind of shit that pisses me off. You know, this is racing. It should be every man for themselves. This whole teammate bullshit, I don't fucking get it. I'll never understand it. I know these manufacturers want to see their cars up front, and they have these rules. I fucking hate that. And the fact that they had to have this special, long-winded, serious meeting before the race, you know, emphasizing to their drivers, you're not allowed to help this manufacturer. Well, what if you're closing down towards the end of the race and you got a chance to have a top 5, and the guy that you're pushing is a different manufacturer? Are you supposed to just back out and get a 20th place finish because you don't want to help this guy? Which somebody else is going to jump in and help them anyway. This whole thing is fucking ridiculous. It's stupid. That's what I hate most about these Daytona Talladega races, is the politics. It's all this bullshit about, oh, you got to work with specific people and teammates and manufacturer. It should be every man for themselves. That's what a race is, right? And that's why I don't like these races. This is why I do like all the other races, because it's every man for themselves. So that's, for me, the biggest negative. I really hated that. And I don't, it's embarrassing to me. You know, you want to be taken seriously as a sport, you got to get rid of that shit. It should be every man for himself, man. It should be, you know, boys have at it and just go for it, man. You shouldn't have to be worried as a driver who's around me, who's pushing me, who I'm pushing. It's ridiculous. It's fucking, it's embarrassing, to be honest with you, that this shit's going on in NASCAR. NASCAR needs to step in and say, hey, enough with the bullshit. Every man out there should be racing and race hard, race for the win, and none of this politics, you know. And this is how blatant they are about it, that they tell everyone on national television that these meetings are going on. You know, you would think that they would be like, hey, let's not let people actually know that we're forcing our drivers to follow these strict rules. Doesn't look good. I don't like that. So that's just a pet peeve of mine. It's always been a part of restrictor plate racing, and I don't. That's just another reason why I've never been a fan. I like the other races because nobody's worried about who's, you know, and then you can't succeed in these races without somebody's help. So it's these extra factors that come into play that I'm not a fan of. So overall, it was a very good race for what it is, and I did enjoy it. I could sit and watch this finally, you know. There were a couple of accidents that I got to be honest. Some people look really excited when this stuff happens. I don't get it. You know, for me, I'm all about the racing. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want that Larson flip was really scary. You know, people, I think, get lulled into this false sense of security that these cars are so much more safer than they used to be, and you got the safer barriers and all this stuff and all this technology built in. And I think people get lulled into this false sense of security where it's like, hey man, you know, this guy could tumble 100 times or hit a wall going 180 miles an hour. Everything's safer now. Listen, man, this is dangerous stuff. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't care who it is. So it was scary watching that Larson crash and flip, and it's another thing I've always not liked about Daytona Talladega. So we didn't really get the big one like we used to see years ago, which is good. But I don't want to see that. So I'm glad Larson's okay, and that's it. One last thing, I'm still not locked on to who for somebody to root for 100%. There's a handful of drivers I like, but I gotta say I am week after week I'm gravitating more and more towards rooting for Daniel Suarez. I like him. I think he's talented, and he's run really well week after week. He's still just a bit short of actually, competing for wins, right? He's not there yet. He's not ready yet. But I think he's shown enough as a driver, talent-wise, that if they keep this group together, I think he can break through at some point, right? And I like what I see. He's a humble guy. He's talented, and he's young. And I just find myself gravitating towards following what's going on with him. When I went to Richmond, I was really focused on what he was doing. He ran really well almost all day. And at some point, they must have had a speeding penalty or something where he had to pass through. And, it was pretty much over at that point. He did get a top 20 at the end. But, he runs well at every track. I haven't really seen him run badly anywhere, which is good. He seems to be competitive, and I like what I see. So, I mean, am I at the point where I'm ready to go out and buy all the merchandise yet? Not yet. I'm still feeling things out, and it's not something that you can consciously just decide, hey, I'm going to root for somebody. I'm not like that. That's not how I operate. I'm not built that way. And the fact that I do think he's a little bit of an underdog, he's not looked at as like the next great fucking thing. I think that helps as well. I have this tendency to not root for like the best of the best, right? For some reason, I can't do it. It's very rare, right? Yeah, the New York Yankees have always been the top dogs of everything, whatever. That's another thing. But outside of that, I've always tended to root for more or less for underdogs. It's not conscious. I don't do it consciously. It just turns out that way. But I like Daniel Suarez. I am a fan. I do like Kyle Larson. I do like Chip Ganassi Racing. I've always liked Chip Ganassi Racing. I liked Sterling Marlin when he ran that Coors Light car, which was still one of the best, coolest looking cars. It'd be nice to see Coors Light come back. I would love to see that silver and orangey red car come back. That'd be cool. But I also I like Dave Blaney. I really like Bubba Wallace. Unfortunately, he's in a bad spot, and I've always liked Richard Petty. That 43 car. I would love to see them be somewhat relevant again, but things don't look good there. But deep inside, I still root for them, and I still I'll still root for Bubba Wallace. I like Bubba Wallace. I like his personality. I do think he's talented. I just don't think he's going to have the opportunity to really show what he can do. But outside of that, there's not too many guys that I'm leaning towards. Right now, the guy right now that looks like he's going to be that guy, it's looking more and more like Daniel Suarez. And I think by the end of the year, if he's not my guy by the end of the year, then he's probably never gonna be. But I like what I see, and I like the way he carries himself. So, not that you guys care, but it's just one thing I've been talking about. I haven't really had a guy since Jamie McMurray's gone now, retired. So I can't root for him anymore. So let's see what happens. So those are my thoughts about Talladega. What do you guys think about what I said? Do you agree, disagree with certain aspects? I did really enjoy the race. I'm just not as, uh, enthusiastic about it as other guys are. I guess, I think if you are a restricted plate racing fan, Daytona Talladega, then I could understand why this race you'd be really pumped up about it, right? But because I'm not really a hardcore fan of those particular races, I'm not as enthusiastic about it. But I am. They did get some excitement out of me. I wasn't thoroughly entertained watching the race throughout the day, and I did enjoy watching this kind of new accordion type of racing where these cars weren't just locked together 30 deep and just a big freight train conga line for hours on end with a leader you can't pass. That was nowhere to be seen yesterday. So that for me was the biggest positive. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? And I'll put up another video when there's something to talk about. If there's something you guys would like to hear me talk about, whatever it is, and you got suggestions, put it in the comment section. I don't do a lot of videos. I don't, this isn't a money making thing for me. I just talk about stuff that interests me. So there are other videos that I thought about doing, but at the last minute, like I just didn't do it. For example, I was gonna talk about the Michael Jackson Leaving Neverland documentary, what I thought about it, this whole thing, with the controversy being brought up again. I was gonna do a video on that, but then I just kind of like, nah, who cares, right? At least the people that watch my videos, I don't have a large subscriber base. I'm like, why? I've put out videos in the past and just I don't see a lot of interest in it. That's why I haven't done politics, right? Something that I did at one point, I was interested in doing, but the feedback that I got from most of you guys was you weren't interested, you didn't want it. So I respected that, and I just said, you know what? Why am I going to do a video about something that, this particular group of people don't want to hear about? So I haven't, right? So I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Doesn't mean I'm going to automatically run out and make a video. But if enough people say, hey, yeah, that'd be interesting to me, whatever, let me know and I'll think about it, whatever. But right now, there's not much to talk about in terms of NASCAR game development. There's no news out. There's no information. So that's why I haven't really talked about it. So I look forward to your comments. I'll see you guys around.